The moment you feel the urgent burning need to explain yourself to someone who has misunderstood you, you have already handed them the keys to your mental kingdom. It is a subtle, invisible trap that catches even the most disciplined minds. The belief that if you just find the right words, if you just arrange your arguments perfectly, the other person will finally see your worth, validate your truth, and grant you the closure you crave. But look closer at that sudden surge of panic, that tight knot in your chest that forces you to text back a wall of text or speak over someone in an anxious rush. That is not a desire for clarity. It is the sound of your personal sovereignty cracking under the weight of someone else's opinion. Stoicism teaches us that the highest form of self-respect is not the ability to win an argument, but the quiet confidence to let a false narrative exist without your intervention. When you rush to defend your character, you are silently admitting that their distorted perception of you carries more weight than your own internal reality. You are begging for a jury's verdict when you should be sitting on your own throne. Consider what actually happens in the human brain during the act of over-explaining. Modern psychology reveals that this behavior is almost always a trauma response, a deeply ingrained survival mechanism known as fawning. You are attempting to manage the emotions of the person in front of you to keep yourself safe from rejection, conflict, or abandonment. But the paradox is brutal. The more you explain, the more vulnerable you appear, and the less you are actually respected. To the predatory or manipulative mind, your explanations are not answers. They are a roadmap of your insecurities. They show exactly where you are fragile, what you care about too much, and how easily your peace can be disrupted by a simple raised eyebrow or a cold silence. By remaining silent, you do not concede defeat. You completely remove yourself from the game they are trying to play. You draw a sharp, unyielding boundary that says your truth is an absolute reality, not a debate topic open for public discussion. This brings us to the core of Epictetus's immortal wisdom, the dichotomy of control. There are things that are entirely up to us, and things that are completely outside of our power. Your thoughts, your intentions, your actions, and your integrity belong exclusively to you. The thoughts, prejudices, moods, and misinterpretations of other people belong entirely to them. They are external phenomena, no different than a sudden rainstorm or a rough wave crashing against a cliffside. When you exhaust your spirit trying to correct a false impression, you are quite literally trying to control the weather. You are demanding that the universe alter its nature just to make you feel comfortable. The Stoic looks at a critic, recognizes that their mind is a chaotic territory outside of their jurisdiction, and simply lets them think whatever they wish. It requires massive internal gravity to watch someone form a completely wrong opinion about your life and choose to offer absolutely nothing in return. Imagine the sudden, tectonic shift in power that occurs the exact moment you choose silence over defense. In any social dynamic, the person who speaks the most, explains the most, and scrambles for validation the most is the one who holds the least amount of leverage. Silence creates a vast, uncomfortable vacuum. When you refuse to fill that void with excuses or justifications, the weight of the awkwardness shifts entirely onto the other person. They are forced to sit alone with their own assumptions, their own malice, or their own ignorance. Your silence acts as a pristine mirror, reflecting their behavioral dysfunction straight back at them without absorbing a single drop of their toxicity. This is how you reclaim your time, your emotional energy, and your dignity in a single breath. You stop treating your precious life choices as if they require a license from the people around you. We must confront an uncomfortable truth that most people spend their entire lives avoiding. Notice how much of your daily anxiety is generated not by actual physical hardships, but by the imaginary trials you hold inside your own head, prosecuting yourself on behalf of people who do not even care about you. You replay conversations from 3 days ago, crafting the perfect, devastating comeback you wish you had said. You draft imaginary speeches to prove to a boss, an ex-partner, or a distant family member that you were right all along. Marcus Aurelius looked at his own reflection and realized that we all love ourselves more than other people, yet we care far more about their opinion of us than our own self-worth. It is a bizarre form of mental slavery. The moment you decide that your character does not require a public relations campaign, the entire phantom court system in your mind collapses. The judge walks out, the jury disperses, and you are finally left alone with the only opinion that has ever mattered, your own. True personal sovereignty is not loud, aggressive, or boastful. It does not look like a man shouting down his enemies or demanding that everyone in the room acknowledge his achievements. It looks like a deep, immovable ocean. Ships can sail across the surface, storms can rage above it, and debris can be thrown into its waters, but the deep abyss remains completely undisturbed, cold and heavy. When someone hurls an insult or misreads your silence as weakness, they are merely throwing a pebble into that ocean. If you react, if you ripple and splash and throw the pebble back, you have allowed that tiny rock to dictate the state of your entire ecosystem. If you remain still, the pebble sinks to the bottom, forgotten, while the ocean remains vast and unbroken. Your silence is the ultimate filter. It keeps your inner citadel clean of worldly noise. As you move through this life, people will consistently mislabel your boundaries as arrogance, your focus as coldness, and your peace as a threat to their control. Let them. Your reputation is nothing more than a shadow cast by your body, and trying to manipulate your reputation is as foolish as trying to grab a shadow with your bare hands. Step out of the shadow and into the sunlight of raw, unmediated execution. When you stop talking about what you are going to do, and you stop explaining why you are doing it, your actions begin to carry an undeniable, visceral weight. People respect what is rare, and in a world of endless noise, digital clutter, and desperate attention-seeking, a human being who can sit comfortably in absolute silence is the rarest, most formidable presence of all. Consider the profound psychological relief that comes when you fully absorb this reality. You no longer have to carry the exhausting burden of being understood by everyone you meet. Some people are committed to misunderstanding you because your growth highlights their stagnation, or because your discipline exposes their lack of control. To offer them an explanation is to cast pearls before swine. It is a waste of your vital life force. Save that energy for the deep internal work that actually shapes your destiny. The next time you feel that familiar anxious urge to speak, to justify, or to correct a false narrative, take a slow, deliberate breath. Recognize the trap for what it is. Smile inwardly at the realization that their opinion cannot alter the fabric of your character unless you allow it to, and choose the immense quiet power of saying absolutely nothing at all. To understand the true weight of silence, we must look into the past, at the men who built this philosophy not in comfortable universities, but in the trenches of war, plague, and political betrayal. Picture Marcus Aurelius sitting in his imperial tent at night, the cold winds of the Danubian frontier howling through the canvas. Around him, generals were plotting, Rome was being ravaged by a devastating pandemic, and his closest friend, Avidius Cassius, was actively orchestrating a massive rebellion to steal the throne. Marcus did not launch into an aggressive public campaign to defend his right to rule, nor did he write panicked letters to the Senate explaining his side of the story. His initial response was an intense, calculated silence. He understood that when a crisis hits, the world looks at the leader's face to see if it reflects panic or peace. By refusing to engage in the public theater of outrage, he contained the psychological wildfire before it could spread. He knew that the inner citadel, the fortress of the rational mind, cannot be breached by external chaos unless the commander inside willingly opens the gates. This historical stoicism reveals a massive contrast with how the modern world teaches us to handle conflict. Today we are told to express every passing emotion, to vent our frustrations, and to demand immediate validation from our environment. But when you look at the most powerful figures in history, their authority was almost always directly proportional to their emotional economy. Every time you speak in anger, defense, or desperation, you are spending a piece of your personal capital. Marcus Aurelius explicitly wrote in his private journals that the best revenge against an ungrateful or treacherous person is to simply not be like them. If someone betrays you, your defense is not an elaborate speech proving your innocence. Your defense is the unshakable excellence of your ongoing life. You do not lower yourself into the mud to wrestle with someone whose only goal is to get you dirty. You remain on the high ground of your own character, watching their frantic attempts to provoke you dissolve into irrelevance. When you refuse to offer a defense amidst a public or personal storm, you are practicing a form of radical emotional conservation. Think of your mind as a high-value kingdom under siege. The enemy outside is hurling insults, rumors, and provocations over the walls, hoping you will open the massive iron gates to fight them in the open field. They want a chaotic battle because chaos levels the playing field, allowing their malice to match your virtue. But as long as those gates remain closed, their arrows hit solid stone and fall harmlessly into the dirt. The inner citadel remains entirely self-sustaining, fueled by its own clarity and moral alignment. Your silence is not a sign that you are hiding or that you lack the courage to stand up for yourself. It is the ultimate display of absolute security. It shows that you do not need the approval of the crowd outside to know that your fortress is secure and your intentions are pure. This level of mastery requires you to completely reframe how you view the people who seek to disrupt your peace. In the Stoic view, a person who insults you, spreads lies about you, or betrays your trust is not a monstrous villain who possesses the magical power to ruin your life. They are simply a broken instrument, a person acting out of deep ignorance of what is actually good and honorable. Epictetus argued that just as you would not feel personally offended by a blind person bumping into you on the street, you should not feel offended by a morally blind person bumping into your character. They are doing what their flawed nature dictates. When you realize that their behavior is a reflection of their internal sickness rather than your worth, the desire to explain yourself completely evaporates. You do not argue with a feverish patient in a hospital bed. You observe them with a detached, compassionate understanding, and you protect your own health. Let us look deeper into the mechanics of social pressure and public turmoil. Notice how a crowd, or even a small group of friends and co-workers, operates like a collective organism. It feeds on reaction. It craves drama, facial expressions, defensive text messages, and conversational friction. The moment you give them a reaction, you feed the beast, validating their right to judge you. But when you meet their public turmoil with a calm, steady gaze and absolute silence, the collective energy hits a wall of pure granite. The momentum stalls. They are left holding their own outrage, unsure of what to do next, because the script they wrote in their heads depended entirely on you playing the victim or the aggressor. By breaking that script, you assume total control of the room without uttering a single syllable. This is the hidden genius of strategic silence. It forces the people around you to confront their own internal emptiness. When an environment is loud and everyone is talking over one another to prove their status, the person who sits quietly, listening intently, but contributing only when absolutely necessary, becomes a gravity well. Their presence commands an undeniable psychological authority because their words are backed by scarcity. Everyone else is giving away their thoughts for free, leaking energy through endless gossip and trivial complaints. The Stoic treats their words like precious gold, spending them only on things that are true, useful, and beautiful. When you speak less, the few words you do choose to release carry the immense weight of a deliberate, heavy hammer. As we transitioned into understanding how this applies to your daily life, consider the sheer liberation of letting go of the need to control the narrative. The world is a vast, messy marketplace of competing opinions, biases, and projections. Trying to make everyone see you accurately is a fool's errand that will leave you spiritually bankrupt and utterly exhausted. Let the rumors swirl. Let the insecure people whisper in the corners. Your life is not a television show produced for their entertainment, and you are under no obligation to provide them with a satisfying storyline. Your only obligation is to the small, quiet voice of inside your own soul, demanding that you act with justice, self-control, and courage. When that internal alignment is solid, the public noise outside becomes nothing more than background static, completely incapable of touching the core of who you are. Now we must step out of the historical courts of Rome and look directly at the hidden modern battlefield where your silence is most deeply tested. Every day, you navigate an intricate social web filled with projection, envy, and subtle psychological warfare. When someone attacks your choices, minimizes your achievements, or passive-aggressively questions your path, they are rarely speaking about you at all. They are projecting their own unhealed inadequacies, their skipped workouts, their abandoned dreams, and their deep-seated fear of irrelevance onto your canvas. When you step forward to explain your motives or defend your trajectory, you are making a fatal tactical error. You are accepting ownership of a package that was never addressed to you. You are taking their internal garbage and neatly placing it inside your own living room. Modern psychology calls this behavior projection, but the Stoics understood it thousands of years ago as a structural defect of the untrained mind. A person who is spiritually stagnant cannot tolerate the sight of someone else moving forward with quiet purpose. Your progress acts as an accidental mirror that exposes their decay. To survive their own self-loathing, they must drag your character down to a level they can comfortably look down upon. They will intentionally misinterpret your silence as guilt, your boundaries as hostility, and your focus as snobbery. If you take the bait and begin a long defensive monologue to clear your name, you are validating their false authority. You are giving them exactly what they want, a front-row seat to your emotional destabilization. You are allowing them to weaponize your own words against you, using your explanations as ammunition to further dissect your character. This is where the concept of strategic scarcity becomes your ultimate psychological shield. In the modern marketplace of attention, access is far too cheap. People believe they have a fundamental right to your thoughts, your time, your emotional reactions, and your explanations. They expect you to text back within seconds, to justify your career moves, and to defend your lifestyle choices at the nearest family gathering or corporate meeting. When you give away your energy so freely, you create a surplus, and anything in absolute surplus is naturally devalued by the human brain. By practicing a disciplined scarcity of speech, you completely restructure the dynamics of your relationships. You stop allowing casual observers to rent space in your head for free. Your life, your goals, and your internal state become an exclusive territory, a premium reality that cannot be accessed by anyone who happens to toss a casual insult or a manipulative question your way. Consider the profound shift in leverage that occurs when you actively lean into this psychological boundary. When an insecure or toxic person tries to provoke you, they are expecting a specific behavioral loop: provocation, defensive reaction, escalation, and mutual exhaustion. They are deeply familiar with this loop. It is the chaotic environment where they feel most alive and in control. When you break that loop by offering absolute, unblinking silence, you create an intense psychological vacuum. The force of their own toxic energy, finding no resistance to crash against, loops backward and implodes within their own mind. They are left standing alone in the emptiness, forced to eat their own words and chew on their own discomfort. Your refusal to engage does not make you look weak. It makes you look terrifyingly self-contained. It signals to the collective environment that your peace is entirely self-funded and completely immune to external manipulation. We must understand that modern social dynamics are designed to keep you in a perpetual state of defensive explanation. Social media algorithms, toxic workplace cultures, and fragile family structures all thrive on continuous, low-level emotional friction. They demand that you constantly declare your allegiance, justify your success, or apologize for your boundaries. The Stoic recognizes this systemic noise and chooses radical non-participation. You do not owe the world a continuous explanation of who you are and what you are building in the dark. Your execution is your only valid statement. Let your consistency do the talking. Let your financial stability, your physical health, your creative output, and your unshakable peace be the final crushing answer to every doubt ever whispered behind your back. To master this level of strategic scarcity, you must develop a profound intolerance for trivial arguments. Ask yourself honestly, How much of your daily mental capacity is leaked into useless debates that have zero impact on your actual destiny? You are arguing over politics with a coworker who will never change their mind, or trying to prove your worth to an individual who is structurally incapable of seeing it. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself every morning that the people he would encounter that day would be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and unsociable. He did not say this to become a cynic. He said it to remove the element of surprise. When you expect people to be dysfunctional, you stop being shocked by their dysfunction, and you stop wasting your breath trying to fix it. You simply bypass their noise and focus entirely on the direct execution of your duty. As we look toward the closer circles of your life, the challenge becomes even more intimate and demanding. It is one thing to ignore a stranger or a distant acquaintance, but it is an entirely different trials to maintain this inner citadel when the pressure comes from those who claim to love you. The mechanics of projection do not stop at the front door of your house or the border of your closest friendships. In fact, that is often where the crabs-in-a-bucket mentality operates with the most devastating precision, waiting to test whether your stoic armor is a superficial mask or a genuine, hard-won reality built deep within your bones. The true test of your stoic armor does not happen in the presence of strangers or distant critics. It happens at the kitchen table, in the family group chat, and during casual dinners with childhood friends. This is where the pressure hits closest to the bone. When you begin to detach from the collective noise, adopt deep discipline, and choose silence over defensive chatter, the people closest to you will often be the very first to push back. They will use your old vulnerabilities against you, wrap their insults in the protective guise of casual jokes, and passive-aggressively question your new trajectory. It is the classic mechanics of the crabs-in-a-bucket mentality. When one crab attempts to climb out of the rusty bucket to claim its freedom, the other crabs do not cheer its escape. They instinctively reach up with their claws to drag it back down into the collective pile of misery. They do this not because they inherently hate you, but because your sudden ascent shatters the comfortable illusion that escape is impossible. Your discipline is an active accusation against their stagnation. Epictetus, who spent his early life as a slave enduring the absolute whims of an unpredictable master, understood the bitter nature of domestic ridicule better than anyone. He explicitly warned his students that the moment you choose a path of philosophy and self-mastery, your closest peers will laugh at you, mocking your serious demeanor and accusing you of being arrogant or self-righteous. His rule for handling this internal friction was beautifully brutal. You must stand as firm as a marble statue against their mockery, holding fast to what you know to be best, without ever matching their hostility. If you remain unshakable, the very people who ridiculed you will eventually be forced to admire your consistency. But if you buckle under their social pressure, if you break character to anxiously explain your motives or apologize for making them uncomfortable, you will suffer a double defeat. You will lose your progress, and you will give them a permanent license to dictate your worth. Notice the unique psychological trap that close relationships present to the developing mind. With a stranger, it is easy to walk away or remain silent because you carry no emotional investment in their perception. But with family and lifelong friends, there is a deep biological urge to be understood. You want them to see that your lifestyle changes, your intense focus, and your quiet boundaries are born out of a desire for genuine excellence, not a rejection of their love. This desire is a dangerous vulnerability. The moment you pull a close family member aside to explain your new habits or justify your career shifts, you have surrendered your domestic sovereignty. You are giving them a vote in a system where they should only ever be an observer. The Stoic understands that you cannot force a family member to see your vision if their mind is structurally unequipped to comprehend it. You must love them for who they are, respect their place in your history, but completely cut their access to your future plans. To maintain your inner citadel within your closest circles, you must implement a regime of radical domestic self-discipline. This means removing all emotional reactive patterns from your daily interactions. If a parent, a sibling, or an old friend throws a familiar passive-aggressive jab across the dinner table, your immediate internal cue must be absolute stillness. Do not sigh heavily, do not roll your eyes, and do not launch into a passionate counter-argument to expose their hypocrisy. Let the comment land in the room like a dead leaf falling onto concrete. Offer a polite, neutral nod, ask if someone could pass the salt, and move completely forward without giving their provocation a single drop of emotional fuel. This level of restraint is incredibly disorienting to people who have spent years learning exactly how to trigger your defensive loops. When they realize that their words no longer possess the power to elicit an emotional refund from you, the toxic behavior will naturally begin to starve from a lack of attention. This discipline requires you to stop trying to convert the people around you to your way of thinking. There is a common trap where someone discovers philosophy or personal development and immediately tries to teach it to their friends and family, hoping to pull them along on the journey. This is almost always met with deep resentment and immediate pushback. People do not want to be fixed, and they certainly do not want to feel as though you are looking down on them from a pedestal of superior wisdom. Epictetus advised that you should never call yourself a philosopher or talk hoarsely about your principles in front of untrained people. Instead, simply show them your principles through your actions. Do not lecture them on the value of a clean minimalist diet. Just eat cleanly without making a scene. Do not preach about the psychological power of managing your time with absolute, quiet consistency. Your life must be the only sermon you ever give. As you master this level of internal containment within your immediate environment, you will notice a strange and beautiful phenomenon. A profound sense of lightness begins to replace your old, chronic anxiety. You are no longer carrying the impossible weight of trying to manage how your relatives or childhood friends perceive your life. You realize that their opinions are a completely external commodity, existing entirely within their skulls, completely incapable of altering the actual quality of your character or the direct outcome of your labor. With this domestic baseline securely established, you are finally ready to take this unyielding mental clarity into the darkest, most competitive arenas of human ambition, where the stakes are incredibly high and the satisfaction of quiet execution awaits your command. This is where the entire philosophy consolidates into raw, unyielding power. The final stage of internal containment, where you transform your energy from a scattered public display into a highly pressurized engine of quiet execution. Most people suffer from a chronic inability to keep their mouths shut about what they are going to do. They announce their new business ventures, post their fitness goals online, and talk endlessly about their big plans for the future. They do this because they are addicted to the cheap, immediate hit of validation that comes from merely talking about success. The human brain, in its evolutionary simplicity, confuses the announcement of a goal with its actual achievement, releasing dopamine before a single hour of real work has been put in. By the time they actually sit down to execute, their internal fire has already been spent on cheap applause. They have bled out their ambition through their lips. The Stoic practices the exact opposite, the pressure cooker effect of absolute privacy. When you take a massive, ambitious goal and you bury it deep inside your chest, refusing to tell a single soul what you are building, you create an intense psychological tension. The energy that would have been wasted on casual conversations and boastful social media updates has nowhere to go. It is trapped inside a sealed container. It builds and builds, heating up your spirit until it has no choice but to vent itself through radical, focused, real-world action. Your silence becomes the fuel for your execution. You become a ghost in the system, working early in the morning and late at night, moving in absolute darkness, while everyone else is busy broadcasting their every move to a world that does not care. This internal containment is your ultimate armor against workplace and social sabotage. In any highly competitive environment, whether it is a corporate office, a university, or a local community, people are constantly scanning their surroundings for threats. The moment you loudly announce your ambitions, you flag yourself as a target. You invite envy, passive-aggressive interference, and subtle attempts to undermine your progress. But a human being who executes in absolute silence is entirely invisible to the radar of malicious people. They cannot attack a target they cannot see. They cannot sabotage a plan they do not know exists. While they are wasting their time gossiping and playing petty political games, you are quietly accumulating skills, building assets, and securing leverage. By the time they finally realize you are a force to be reckoned with, the game is already over. You have already won, and they are left staring at a completed masterpiece they never saw coming. This brings us to the final crushing climax of the Stoic lifestyle, the sheer, unmatched satisfaction of quiet execution. There is a deep, intoxicating confidence that belongs exclusively to the person who does not need to prove anything to anyone but themselves. You look at your financial stability, your hardened physique, your sharp mind, and your unshakable peace, and you realize that you built this entire fortress without a single cheer from the crowd. You did not need their applause to start. You did not need their validation to keep going, and you do not need their permission to enjoy the fruits of your labor. Your character is self-funded, self-sustained, and completely autonomous. You have achieved the ultimate state of personal sovereignty, absolute immunity to the opinions of the world. As you step away from these words and return to the chaotic noise of the everyday world, remember the heavy stone walls of the inner citadel you have chosen to build. Let the people around you talk. Let them judge, let them misunderstand, and let them chase the cheap, fleeting shadows of public attention. Your path is different. Your path is the steady, silent, and deliberate path of the emperor-philosopher, ruling your internal kingdom with absolute authority. Guard your silence as if it were your very life force, because it is. Stop explaining yourself. Stop begging for validation. Step into the dark, put your head down, and let the undeniable weight of your results do the talking for you. If you found deep value in this mental training today, carry this strength into our next session, and consider exploring another philosophy on this channel to further fortify your mind. Until we meet again in another video.